Hey guys, welcome to Tactical Pontoon. This is a small little tip of the day. This is something that more than likely you've probably been sent this video by me just to help you see maybe what went wrong in your troubleshooting. So here we are. This applies to Generation 5, Glock 43, 43X, and 48, and then of course their derivatives thereof. This video does not apply to generation 1 through 4, but there'll be a separate video for something like that, but as is. Okay, starting off, we have a Glock Generation 5 trigger here. And if you have seen the Generation 3 and previous, you'll notice that this trigger bar is a little bit different. It does not have the little hook for a trigger spring to attach to. Now, the purpose of this video is if you have reset issues after playing with your trigger. It's very common when installing one of these triggers, or after cleaning your trigger, or maybe just installing a new one, you'll notice that the trigger is supposed to, there's a little hook inside the trigger block housing. Let's see if we can. There's a little hook on the front of the trigger spring, and the trigger bar is supposed to ride inside of that hook. That is the proper way that this trigger is assembled. Oftentimes, people that just don't know or not paying attention, they will set the trigger on top of that trigger hook. Okay, and that will allow it to move around freely. If you don't know any better, you won't notice this difference. Now, when you install that trigger incorrectly, and it is much easier to install it incorrectly than it is correctly, just because setting that on top of versus inside the spring is easier. Okay, we're gonna reassemble this guy real quick. Now, initially, and this is a test slide, so that's why you see a bunch of crazy holes in it and whatnot. Initially, it might work just fine. Okay, the first break is good. It might reset good. There's going to come a time, of course, while I'm trying to film it, it's not going to do that. This is a good one. Oh, there it is. There it is. It did not reset. And it's going to keep resetting because I'm trying to show it on camera. That is the beauty of the Generation 5 system. There, it did it again. Okay? Occasionally, it's not going to reset. And like I said, you can see here, this trigger is wobbling back and forth. You can move it back and forth relatively easy with very little, strength on your end. So this is one way to check for it before pulling a slide off, is if that trigger is just able to move back and forth really easily, that's an indication of this. Like I said, sometimes it's going to reset just fine. So this is an intermittent problem that you may not even know you have. So if you've got a Generation 5, it's something you might take a look at to make sure that you're not running into this issue, possibly in the worst possible time. Like I said, this one actually seems to be really good. Most of the time, once it starts happening, it just doesn't reset at all. So, like I said, this trigger bar, and that's kind of one of the beauties of the Generation 5 Glock system, is it is more forgiving if something's wrong when it comes to that trigger spring. If that trigger spring breaks in a Generation 1 through 4, you're going to notice it quite a bit quicker than this Generation 5. So that is, if you will, one of the improvements of a Generation 5 over a Generation 1 through 4. All right, so basically what that means is if you have a Generation 5 or a Glock 43X, if you do anything with the trigger system, make sure that you hook that trigger bar correctly in the trigger spring so that it has tension like it's supposed to. You do not want it riding on top of the trigger spring. Like you saw, it will reset from time to time, but it's not fully reliable, and that's why we have Glocks. We want them to be reliable. So that's been a Tactical Pontoon quick tip, and we will catch you on the next one.